After I received my Bachelor of Arts degree in advertising from the University of Oklahoma, I got into pharmaceutical sales and then hospital equipment sales because I needed to pay off some student loan debt. But at one point, my friends had all kind of jumped over from healthcare sales business to the physician and hospital recruiting business. And I got recruited into that. That was around 1995, and I've been in the recruiting industry ever since. I moved up in the world, began doing IT recruiting, set a lot of records, became a boss, then an owner, and then a consultant in the industry. While I owned my own staffing firm, we started what was called the TalentNet Live Twitter chat. It's right when Twitter started getting really popular, around 2007, 2008. Everyone had been on a channel called recruitingblogs.com, posting these weekly chats. All the recruiters would get into these rooms and have conversations about, is social media good for recruiting? Can you actually recruit on places like Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn? Well, when Twitter got popular, people started to abandon the regular chat rooms. And so we started TalentNet as the first ever Twitter chat for recruiters.
I knew Craig when he had a staffing firm, and we had met back at like a networking event. I have some of his old business cards, which is actually kind of funny. When he first started TalentNet, it was really kind of a community of friends that got together and said, we'll bring some other people that we don't know. And it was really kind of the birth, especially in North Texas, probably even the Southwest, of just recruiters kind of understanding that there's a shared experience. It was kind of like therapy or therapeutic, like just getting together and understanding that, you know, there's another gal or another guy that's going through the exact same stuff that I'm going through. And what can I learn from that person and what can they learn from me?
Back at the time, when Twitter was fledgling, it was a big deal to meet your Twitter friends in real life. And so quickly into this weekly Twitter chat, we began to realize that people were very interested in actually meeting up. And this is at a bad time in the economy. The housing bubble had burst. People didn't have budgets to go to the big conferences that were in Vegas or in New York or California. And so people started saying, hey, there's a bunch of us right here in Dallas. Why don't we just make our own conference? And so TalentNet Live, the conference, spurred directly from a request on the TalentNet Twitter chat to meet up.
I recruited at the time a lot of IT people and would spend time going to user groups for IT people, and then I was looking for another job and had applied for positions and wasn't getting quite the response I wanted. And then it clicked one day because I would coach my candidates and tell them that they needed to network with their own peers. And as I was saying this again to one of my candidates, I had an epiphany that I'm not networking with my peers. And he put on this conference for TalentNet Live, and I went to the first one, and then after that we just worked on some things together, and it was a good way for me to just get to know other people in the industry, nationally, internationally. Bill Boorman sat next to me at the first TalentNet.
I just tweeted him and said, I'll come. And he went, we haven't got any budget for flights or anything like that. I said, no, look, I want to come out because I've never done anything for an American audience. I've no idea how my message, I've no idea if they're even going to understand my accent or my message or how it's going to work. So this was supposed to just be a small event. I said, I'll just come out and do my thing. If it dies, there'll be no one here and that'll be okay. If it goes well, that'll give me an indication. We turned up and there ended up being about 200 people here. It was a much bigger event. And they came to me the night before and said, oh, you were going to go on like second, but can we make you the closing keynote? Because I think then also having someone over from the UK was kind of a big deal. I think conferences now, the more we've got global, the more people have got connected, it's not a big deal that you have people you have international speak. You'd almost expect it at a certain number of events there would be a certain amount of international people. But in those days it was a big deal.
If you look back at some of the people that are extremely popular in our industry now, you can really kind of thank Craig for a lot of those people having a start in either Austin or the Dallas event. And I think that's kind of a great legacy of both the event, but also for Craig. I mean, he's had to do a lot of this stuff by himself, and with volunteers, and you know, just kind of helpful people in the community. But he kind of willed this into happening, you know, and it just stayed with it. So I think, again, a testament to, you know, a guy that had a vision, you know, codified over time, and knew a bunch of really interesting people that didn't know how to start that journey of speaking in front of people.
I'd never been in Texas. It was at Frito-Lay, and I walked in, and I'd never met any of the people previously in person, really, but turned up, and 70 or 80% of the people knew me, and they knew my stuff, and they knew my blog, and they knew about my life. And I think that was the first realization that you're somewhere where you've never been, and most of the people know you. And what we found from that was the connection and the networking was quite different, because in traditional networking, where everyone you'll meet is a stranger, really most of the whole networking experience is kind of doing the networking dance to see if we can find a topic of common ground, something we can talk about, something that's funny, right? We're searching around for that. But I think when we found that actually we already know all that stuff because we've had social interactions, we've been talking to people, we feel that we know people. That one of the observations I made, that I wrote a blog about, and people talked about it quite a lot, was we used the term at that time IRL, so we'd say in real life, can't wait to meet you, IRL, all the rest of it. But I think was, well, so when we've been meeting digitally, is that not in real life? Is that actually, so actually what we mean is, I can't wait to meet in person, not I can't wait to meet in real life, because we've already done that. So I think that changed the dynamic. So all of those early days were really discovering that stuff and then figuring out where do we fit into our crazy recruiting world? How do we manage to get what we're learning about Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or whatever it was? How do we take that stuff and put it into our recruiting world? And it was a really exciting time because we were, Craig, myself, lots of other people around, Marianthe is here. We were all buccaneers. We were all trying to figure out. We were kind of thinking, we think this is going to be important and we think we can make money at this, but we don't really know how we're going to make money at this.
Over these 10 years, so much has changed. The conversation has moved from, is social media good for recruiting, to how do we further exploit social media for recruiting? The terminology in the industry has changed. We don't even call in-house recruiters that much anymore. They're talent acquisition. And talent acquisition as a concept and as a function in major organizations has risen in the world. It's really come up to help HR have that seat at the table that they've always clamored for and become leaders in talent and HR. And so to celebrate this kind of culmination of talent and HR rising up in the world and my peers moving up, we brought a lot of them together in one place where you could have talent acquisition leaders and HR leaders together for a few hours of roundtables, really discussing what it means for HR to have talent acquisition as its major support and its own sourcing function. And all of these great tools that we use get filtered through the TA area. And that's where the innovation happens for HR.
I think we're at a very interesting junction in our field where we see talent as a function rising. And I think we're starting to see a bifurcation of HR in general, from HR operations being its own world and sort of people functions or people services being another world, and a move away from overlapping fields of expertise to what I call intermeshing fields of expertise. So instead of looking at like a Venn diagram, we're looking at it as a system of gears. And so I think that it's a great time to be where we're at. We're trying to determine where talent fits in is a function to the business. Is it a reactive force to business needs, or is it a driver of business success? And I think that that's a fascinating discussion. What's interesting, everybody in that room, we all want it to be a driver of business success. I think that different organizations are at different points, so it's great that we're sharing ideas of how we move that needle and create that value so that we are drivers of business success.
I remember we were posting ads in the newspaper by, like the deadline was Friday at noon to get your ad for the weekend. We were receiving resumes via fax, and that's where we started. And then from there it's evolved to all the social media and now recruitment marketing. And so it's just so exciting. I have really enjoyed the journey of that and just continuing to learn and grow and evolve. One of the key things that I did as I was kind of coming up in recruiting and I was a recruiter is I really made a connection and worked really hard to build the relationships with the hiring managers. But I would ask them, can I sit in your managers meeting? And the no's were kind of like, why do you're HR, right? Why do you want to be in my meeting? And I'm like, look, if I can just be a fly on the wall, the dynamics of the team, it's helping me understand the type of personalities that will fit within your function when you do have an opening. What you're discussing as a team helps me to have those type of conversations with the candidates when you have an opening. And so as you walk through that and they start to think like, okay, I can see some value in that. That was instrumental for me as a recruiter. And so I've explained that to my team. So this is like step one. And they know that we're truly interested in understanding what they do. And then that helps you get that seat at the table. AI is pretty popular now. A couple years ago, we were hearing about it, and now AI is everywhere. The chatbot type of technology, the QR codes, just the ability now that a lot of the tactical tasks that once we were handling in talent acquisition is now being handled by robotics or some type of technology. And so that's really exciting because now we have more time to focus on the strategic things.
I say hiring managers are not even a real thing. People are just managers who happen to have to hire, right? So the HR function of managing people in the organization, it's got too many built-in biases. The technology that we use has built-in biases down to the code level. There's bias in every line of code depending on who wrote the code, right? So I think what we'll learn and what we'll inspire each other to do is to just get better, to make a candidate's experience better through good communication and filling in those holes where we just drop off and ghosting happens, and make employees' onboarding experiences better and make their time at work better and understand how to stretch people and grow people in the organization in a diverse and inclusive way that will really help all organizations be functionally smarter, better, and more productive.
Starting with kind of the two big pillars that, in my opinion, are kind of two of the big basics, right? And the first one's diverse slates, so not a surprise to anyone because, right, you've got to have the diverse candidate pool. But the other one that I really am really passionate about is having diverse interview panels and the people doing the interviews, right? So if you go past the notion of unconscious bias that people are going to select people that look like them and they relate to, it doesn't matter how good your diverse slate is. If you have a bunch of the same thing, right? White men, Asian females, whatever it is that's not diverse, they're still gonna select the people that look like them. And then flipping it over from the candidate experience side, which I'm very passionate about also, right? Think about if you've got a woman or a person of color sitting in front of a group of all white males, they don't relate and see themselves. So everybody at this level above me that I'm talking to kind of all looks the same. So really, how do I see myself fitting in with this organization? So, we've implemented some new software that's really, really cool that's allowing us to really ensure we're providing diverse slates to hiring managers so we can tell them before we actually move them over, that hey, we know based off of leveraging the software that you have a diverse slate of candidates. So this is what we recommend you go and interview. And the hope right at the back end is that that's going to drive those hiring numbers up.
When you look at what's happening to the job market, right? I mean, I say this, but we're gonna run out of people, in my opinion. You truly are. And so most companies are not gonna be able to afford to just rely on the open market to fill their positions, because it becomes like free agency in baseball, right? And depending on who your favorite teams are, there's 2 or 3 teams that outspend everybody all the time and get everybody. And my poor Rangers can't, if they didn't draft well, they're in trouble, right? So same kind of thing. And so why we started focusing on the K through 12 is, I'll be real, we are in here in Dallas when we're filming it, and if you and I went to a school here in Dallas, an elementary school, the majority of them would think that we're either a pilot or a flight attendant. If we went to an economically disadvantaged school, they might not even know who we are, even though we've been headquarters here because they've never flown before. And so part of our mission that we started about 5+ years ago was like, we've got to get to them early. We have a really great college internship program, but it was like, well, that's great on that end, but it's too late for us to influence them to what to study. We're just getting what's been produced. What if we started stepping that in earlier and going, hey, here are the types of jobs, here's what you should pursue, here's what that could look like, right? But in addition to that, I've got a lot of my roles that don't require a college degree. When someone graduates high school, they're either gonna go to college, maybe a technical school, they go in the military, or they go to start work. Well, what if that third bucket for me is like, well, I need any retail organization, customer service, instead of going and do that, why don't you work at the airport? If you're more of a physical, you'd rather work in a warehouse or in a shipping yard or whatever that may be, I've got that for you as well, right? And it's a long-term career, our benefits are off the chart, we do have tuition reimbursement, so being able to change that mind shift that says, hey, this is actually a really good paying job right to start, but I also can show you multiple senior leaders and vice presidents that started throwing bags 20 some years ago. So that's also a big thing.
So HR has changed a lot. There are roles within an HR organization that didn't exist 10 years ago. There are roles all over the place now for things like employer branding that didn't exist when I started talking about it in the late 2000s. The more we know each other in the recruiting and HR world, the more we're able to refer quality people to those organizations. We really blew that milestone away because now I feel like TalentNet is one of the biggest networks in the industry. It's a challenge to get 150 to 250 people together in the same room on the same day at any price. Some of the larger conferences have bigger marketing budgets and big teams and year-long advertising campaigns, and we don't. We're more grassroots. I definitely do ads, and I do a lot of videos, and I get the speakers to post and share, and we try to bring people together. But it's always a challenge to get the word out to enough people. Even if you email everyone, there's a good chance that they might not see it. And so sometimes just the pure logistics are a huge challenge. And then getting enough vendors together and having the right mix without the event feeling salesy, right? We don't want anyone selling at the event. We want learning is what we want, and networking. There were lots of points where I had to consider shutting it down because I was spending my own money lots of times to put it on and just to keep it going. And occasionally, there's not an employer that has a spot for you. And when you have to go knocking on doors and saying, hey, do you want to host an event? And when your event's kind of a fledgling event, and maybe that employer doesn't know enough about it yet, and it gets tough. There's just the innate challenge of having to sell. And I'm constantly hustling with this thing. So even though I'm now a leader in an organization and I've got, specific things that I do, and I get to do some fun consulting work and practitioner work, I still have to constantly hustle for my other business, which is TalentNet. And so it's a constant struggle. Fun, don't get me wrong, everybody should sell something sometime because it shows you what you're made of.
I have to acknowledge that there was a period of time that I forced myself out of the talent industry because it was kind of treated as a commodity than a value, and then recruiters and HR, they pretty much lost the respect because there were so many points of failure within the talent acquisition industry. And then after coming here, I learned that, hey, at the end of the day, we got to add value, number one, and we are still important because we are the bridge between passionate and superior talent and then great companies who need them to achieve their vision.
When people started telling me that their life changed for the better, or their job changed for the better, or they were able to do better things, cooler things, get approval for budgets because of things they learned at TalentNet, and people were connecting sort of outside of my realm, and TalentNet was growing on its own, and people were getting jobs because of TalentNet and things like that. It was fairly early on, 2 or 3 years in, but it took on a life of its own, and at that point I knew I couldn't stop.
So listen, man, to do anything for 10 years means that you should be congratulated. All of us absolutely appreciate you. We want you to close your eyes and think about what life is going to look like doing this event 10 years from now. Congratulations.
Craig Fisher, man. 10 years. 10 years. I think it was 8 years ago. It was my very first speaking gig at TalentNet in Chicago. You gave me my first shot, and I've been stoked to go on this ride with you, and this is probably my 6th TalentNet overall. And I just want to say, man, you can see from these videos, you've impacted so many people, more than you can even imagine, with bringing people together with Talent Connect, helping people, just doing all the things that you do for the recruiting community. So congrats on this 10-year milestone. It's massive, and congrats for being the awesome guy that you are. Thanks, brother.
I was working at Monster.com, and we came in as a sponsor for TalentNet. And I hadn't even been to Texas at that point in time. And so I went down to Dallas, stayed at the fine Aloft in Plano, did the event, met Craig Fisher, met all of his crew, and I was like, all right, these people are cool, whatever. So obviously we sponsored it a couple of times. So I got to know Craig a little bit better. Fast forward 7 years, I moved to Dallas because Craig was pretty much taught me into it on his boat, which he doesn't have anymore, so that sucks, false advertising. But no, so the only reason I live in Dallas, the only reason I met my wife, and the only reason I have the life I do now is actually because of TalentNet and Craig Fisher.
TalentNet has become the largest recruiting event series in Texas and in the Southwest. Big employers invite us to their corporate offices to host there because they want the exposure that TalentNet brings with it. So I feel like when major HR technology companies are clamoring to get involved and major employers want us in their house, and then the people who attend the event feel like it is such an amazing community and such an intimate event where all speakers are accessible because they're part of the audience, that's success right there. I want to say we're going to scale and we're going to get bigger and we're going to take this all over the place, but we've done that. We've had events in London and Chicago and other places. And, my sweet spot is right here in Texas because it's my backyard. I don't have to go very far. But I think the reality is my long-term plan, my retirement, if you will, involves doing more of this stuff in different locations and bringing this same community to different parts of the world. So we're probably going to scale up and grow again, and we'll probably take on partners, and we might become part of a larger conference. Who knows? But I'll be at the heart of it no matter what, because I love it. I love this industry, and it's so much fun for me to just see everybody on a regular basis and have this great community.
I do think the difference that we'll see extended is the ability to have more choice than we've had in the past. Yeah. And that the requirement that every day you must come in 9 to 5 to this company is going to be a struggle for a lot of companies to enforce on a regular basis.
Here's the thing, diversity is going to continue to be a foundational thing that we have to improve, and the soapbox that I'm standing on is improving the representation of the organization from a diversity perspective is not the job of TA. We're here to help you. We're happy to help you, but it's not go find me a diverse slate, okay? Right? So making sure that there's that engagement across HR, hiring managers, leaders, that's how we're going to move the needle on diversity. I want to get the basics down to a science. I want to be able to report on what's going on in my funnel, or what my time to accept is, my time to start is. I want to have all of those basics because that allows me to tell a story. And once I've got that, then I can begin to do some of the great innovations around AI and predictive analytics and all the rest.
For anyone that was, as a TA professional, anyone that was more on the research side, they may be struggling a little bit because the personalities of anybody that's more on the research side, being a little bit more of an introvert, is really seeking that, wanting to be with others right now, or just wanting, you would think that they need to be on their own and they would be happy as hell right now. But I think a lot of them are not, actually. And I think that you've got some of the recruiters that are the individuals that have always been kind of the true extroverts. They're fine with spending all their time doing what we're doing right now. They enjoy that.
Adding managing a fully remote team to my tool belt. At MailChimp, we've all been home since March 13th. All been working from home, and we will be home till at least June of 2021. So it's been quite an adjustment. I have managed remote folks here and there in the past, but having a full remote department is new for me. So learning there. And then the work that we're doing is so different, right? We are literally building planes as we're flying them, trying to figure out how to navigate what each day brings at us and how it presents and prepares us for talent moving forward.